and you have to wait until you have a green light to proceed, and if you have yellow, you're supposed to stop or prepare to stop, even though for most of us, especially for me, it means step on the gas. But on red, you are actually supposed to stop. Suppose, because there are some instances when that doesn't happen. So one of the things that we want to do is to introduce the concept of roundabouts for whoever does not feel familiar or comfortable with these circular intersections. The benefits of the roundabouts are that for a single lane roundabout, that's the safest at-grade intersection that you can build in the industry. Two-laners have some issues with some crashes, but the severity of the crashes is a lot lower than a traditional intersection. Roundabouts have the capability to manage a lot more traffic than we could manage on a signal. When there are several videos online, and you can actually see one that has a four-way stop control, and around the four-way stop control, you see the cues of the cars having to reach the intersection, stop, wait for the cross traffic to move, and then proceed. And that step-by-step dance takes a lot longer than when you have a circle. Everybody moves a little more freely. It's definitely good for loads of traffic, not only for transportation. We can accommodate with a roundabout passenger vehicles, we can accommodate transit, big trucks, buses, emergency vehicles, bicycles and pedestrians, and visually any kind of pedestrian can be accommodated on a roundabout. And because nobody has to stop, we're capable of reducing fuel consumption and the emission of contaminants to the atmosphere. We can work with geometry, with intersections that are very skewed, and the best thing that communities have found is that it helps to enhance the aesthetics of the area. Roundabouts are not traffic circles, roundabouts are not rotaries. Rotaries are something that we have seen and that we have someone very close in town in the rotary. It's bigger circle, speeds are really high. When you get into the circle, you basically don't have any clear direction of where you are supposed to be, and there may be some confusion about, can I change lanes inside the circle? May I be able to do that? And most of the time, there is not a clear indication for that. And if you remember the Sagamore Rotary in Massachusetts trying to get into the Cape, it was a nightmare, and it was huge. And the only solution that they can actually provide, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, was a flyover. And the reason for that is because they had a lot more traffic than what a roundabout could manage. It's not because roundabouts wouldn't work per se, but the amount of traffic that they had in that specific location was way beyond what a roundabout can manage. A roundabout is usually between 150 to 250 feet in diameter when we're talking about two-lane. Some rotaries that are in existence are up to 600 feet in diameter. That's almost like a small NASCAR ring. Because the circle is a little smaller, vehicles are actually forced to drive very slowly, 15, 25 miles an hour. When you have a big rotary, and if you guys remember, or if you have driven on any of those big circles in Massachusetts, you can reach very easily 40 miles an hour. And if you are totally stopped at the entrance trying to merge the traffic in the circle, it's harder for you to merge with traffic that is going at 40 miles an hour than when you have traffic that is going at 15 miles an hour. That's the beauty of it. You are actually capable of moving more traffic because everybody is moving slower. There is a deflection in the entry. Rotaries that just put you right there in the middle, and then you have to, there is nothing in advance of the circle that forces you to slow down. Modern roundabouts, they actually have small curves just before you get to the circle, so you're slowing down before you get there. We'll see a few examples of that. The way that they are controlled is yield control. There are some locations in other parts of the country where they have stop control. The right-of-way is for the vehicles already in the circle, similar to the rotaries that we have in New England. Whether we have a lot of drivers that do it or not, that's a different story. Pedestrians are never allowed, or they are not encouraged to be in the island. If someone wants to water the plants that are in the center of the island. If they want to do it at their own risk, sure, go ahead, but there is nothing that we're going to design to have pedestrians gathered in the center. And this is just something that, unlike Washington State, where they have some neighborhood circles, someone can turn left before the circle. DuPont Circle in New York and Washington DC, it's pretty big. You can see the dimensions. 2-lane streets coming in here, and there is a whole park inside. So it's definitely designed for pedestrians to gather in the center. It's not necessarily to handle traffic. It's just something part of the neighborhood that they want to have as a park to gather pedestrians. In this case, we have a roundabout, modern roundabout in Maryland. They have a beautiful landscape. One of the beautiful things about roundabouts is that when you have to cross this road further down, you actually have to deal with 4 lanes of traffic. So you have to look to the left, make sure that you have enough gap for those cars that are coming that direction, and at the same time look in the other direction and make sure that you have a good gap in the other approach. The chances that you're going to have a good gap for you to run across the road or walk across the road when you're dealing with 4 lanes of traffic, it's it is minimal. You basically have to run, you have to be in very good shape. In the case of the roundabout, you're only dealing with 2 lanes of traffic, and the traffic is coming only from one direction. You don't have to deal with someone who is making a right turn, someone who is making a left turn and is not looking at you, and the speeds of the drivers already approaching to the circle is a lot lower. You don't have to deal with 35 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour traffic days going in a straight shot, and they're really probably texting, Facebook, or they're doing something else or picking up a CD. When you're approaching a circle, there is so much lack of control of like a signal that you don't have a green, you don't have a red, you don't have a light per se. You have to pay attention to the road. As a driver, you are forced to pay attention to the road. So if you have a pedestrian that is standing here trying to cross, you're probably going at 25 miles an hour, and if you're going 25 miles an hour, you're more likely to yield to the pedestrian who is trying to cross. And you're only dealing with, as a pedestrian, with only 2 lanes of traffic, same direction. You cross, you stay in the median, and then you wait for the other direction. And there is always traffic coming at you in one direction. Unlike any other intersection where you have to be worried about whoever is making a right turn, whoever is making a left turn, besides all the people who are also going through. Roundabouts are definitely not rotaries. This is a rotary that New York State Department of Transportation converted. You can see they were able to build the modern roundabout inside with slip lanes for the right turns inside of what the Central Island used to be. This is 660 feet in diameter. This is 3 times bigger, 2 times bigger than what we have in Newport Rotary. So you can get an idea of how big this is. At this rate, you probably could easily do 45 miles an hour. So they have a lot of congestion in this area. You can see what it is, all the queues because of the construction, not just because of the operations of the rotary. They're replacing with a smaller circle, and a lot of people were saying to the New York State Department of Transportation, "You are crazy. How come you're going to manage more traffic with less pavement? You guys are making this a terrible, terrible mistake. You are not going to do it." And one of the things that we have learned in the industry is that whenever a roundabout project is proposed, there is strong resistance by the communities. Something that we are trying to do is having the outreach to make sure that we all understand how a roundabout works. And the opposition that exists to install a roundabout is really, really high. Once the roundabouts are installed, the opposition is practically disappeared. And in some cases, there are times in which towns are saying, well, now that you're proposing a new signal to my town after you put a roundabout, I don't want this signal. I want that roundabout that you built there before. In the particular case of this intersection, once they built it a lot smaller, it appeared that there was a lot less traffic. All the people who were opposed to the roundabout were saying, yes, you built this weird thing, it's not working, people are trying to avoid it, so we don't have any traffic. Yes, we don't have any issues, we don't have any traffic because everybody who was driving here doesn't understand how to drive and went away. And if you get a first glance, that's probably what A best explanation was for the lack of queues, the lack of traffic. When New York State Department of Transportation did a study after this, the volumes were comparable. They were not even lower, not even higher, they were very, very similar. It's just that a smaller circle can handle better the traffic. This is another project, Massachusetts Department of Transportation, working with the City of Worcester. They replaced this huge rotary with a modern roundabout, and it's available for anybody to see now if anybody wants to take a ride to Worcester, right where the MBTA ends, Union Station. You can see it in operation, and you can see that they actually installed some flashy, fancy lights on the pavement for anybody who's crossing, pushes the button, and then there's some lights that are telling the drivers there is someone on the road trying to cross the road, so be careful. That's something that some municipalities and agencies are really willing to do, to have some device to warn drivers that there is a pedestrian crossing. But again, you can see that the size of the circle is much smaller that they were able to build a new intersection within the island that they had in the old times. A roundabout is safer compared to a traditional intersection, and this is a single lane. Because any traditional intersection, and this could be your neighborhood street, you have up to 32 points of conflict. And if you have one more lane, of course you're going to add the points of conflict. But in this case, you actually have the risk of someone going in this direction, someone not stopping or distracted and hitting someone in a right angle. Or the same thing, someone is crossing in this direction and this person is trying to take a left, there is a possibility of an angle collision. And most likely, some of these cases when you read the narratives of the crashes is because this driver was actually trying to look for a gap in the traffic. And sometimes they miss just the gap and they with that head-on collision here. Or if they're lucky enough to make this movement, they have also to be concerned about pedestrian community crossing here. In the case of a roundabout, you actually eliminate this possibility of an angle collision. There may be a higher possibility of a rear end because if I'm here, I'm going to yield to whoever is already in the circle, and the person who is behind me thinks that I'm not going to be yielding for that person, and then I'm going to get rear-ended. But in any case, a rear-end crash is a lot less severe than an angle or a head-on collision, and the speeds at which these events can occur compared to these ones are a lot different. This one you may be talking about 25 to 15 miles an hour crash when you are talking about a head-on collision at 40 miles an hour when someone is stepping on the gas, which is not necessarily all the time, but there is no chance in a roundabout that you can have a 45 mile an hour collision, or the possibility is very, very small. Roundabouts are good for many environments. Urban area, you have 4 lanes in this direction, 3 lanes in this direction, you have 7 lanes of pavement in this direction. I'm not exactly sure what are the number of lanes in this other direction. It's a signalized intersection. They replace it with a roundabout in the middle of an urban area with a lot of pedestrians. And because the roundabouts are a lot more efficient, they were able to manage the same amount of traffic with a single lane approach. And instead of having all this pavement, they were capable of putting some trees, some bushes, something that is more pleasing to the eye. Also, it helps in terms of absorbing water. Instead of having all that water run off, you have some area to catch. 2001 study by the Insurance Institute of the Highway Safety. The people who pay the bill whenever you get a crash. Roundabouts are actually something that were pushed into the industry throat, if we can say it like that. Federal Highway was not very receptive to that. Most of these intersections, many of the first roundabouts that were built in the U.S. were actually driven by the community. No Department of Transportation, no State Department of Transportation was really in favor of them at the beginning. And to tell you the truth, and when we come with a show of roundabouts to communities, there is always someone who is approaching us and saying, why didn't you just build a roundabout if there is an intersection that you finished reconstructing about 2 years ago? Because we were not ready. There are many intersections that we're now kicking ourselves in the back and saying, why didn't we build a roundabout? This would be a lot better operations, but we were not ready. This is something that we had to learn. This is something that we had to feel comfortable with. we wouldn't be here to present you an option to have a roundabout in a location if we're not comfortable with them. We're not experimenting with Middletown. We're definitely sure that roundabouts can work. We are actually like a surfer, we're running the tide that some other states, some other communities already experienced. We're learning from their mistakes. If they have problems with signage and all that kind of stuff, we are actually having our experience on that. Roundabouts actually reduce the total number of crashes, single-lane roundabouts, up to 40% total crashes. Injury crashes, anything that sends you to a hospital or to a doctor for a little bit, 80%. And any fatal or incapacity crash is something that is really going to have a long-term impact on your health, up to 90%. Roundabouts are definitely an intersection that was pushed by the people who made the bill. Some other studies show similar numbers, 60, 80, 100% in terms of reduction. More statistics about that. Vehicle delays, a lot less people have to stop. Yes, if you have to go through and if you get a green in a signal, you basically have no delay. And if you're in a roundabout, you're always going to have some delay. You have to slow down, turn to the right, go around the circle, and then take the exit that you determine. Everybody is going to have certain delay. But in the average, if you add everybody, the 10,000 drivers that use that circle, the average delay that we're going to have in that intersection compared to the average delay that we're going to have in a signal or in a stop control intersection is going to be a lot less. When you have a green, you are not going to have the delay, but if you are someone who is stuck in a side street and has to wait for 15, 20, 35, 45 seconds until they get a green light, those 45 seconds average with the other people, that's how we estimate the delay. We don't have the pollution that we emit to the environment is a lot less. Roughly, we cut it in third. Can save a lot of fuel if we install roundabouts, more roundabouts. The enhanced aesthetics that also help to help the economy, if you want to say that. There is a study published by the city of Golden, Colorado. You go Google City of Golden, Colorado, roundabouts, and I have a copy of this study if anybody wants to see it. They installed several roundabouts in this commercial corridor with a median. So they told Burger King, they told IHOP, they told Walmart, I'm sorry, you're not going to have a driveway that people are going to be able to turn left in or left out. And I'm sure they were very happy, and I'm trying to be sarcastic. They were very upset. There were no way, because that guy who is driving and wants to go and get a burger and a soda in my place has to go around the circle and then come back. He's never going to do it. They were very, very upset. After several years that this project has been active, the economic growth that this area, the businesses that they have in this corridor is a lot higher than the rest of the city of Golden, Colorado. People are actually willing to drive there because it's more pleasant to drive, it's safer. You can actually go from point A to point B a lot faster without going necessarily faster per se. You don't have to drive 40 miles an hour. You actually drive a lot lower, but you don't have to wait at every single intersection. The ways to drive a roundabout, I saw a beautiful article in the local paper of the difference of how to choose your lanes when you're driving a roundabout compared to a rotary. So this is not so new. Similar to what I was saying at the beginning, if you want to turn left in a roundabout, you're going to locate yourself in the left lane, or if you want to turn right, you're going to turn yourself in the right lane. If this is new, I think that we have to be back to driving school, because last time I checked, any intersection, if you want to turn right, you have to be in the right lane. If you want to turn left, you have to be in the right lane and the left lane. If you want to go through, you have to see the paved markings and the signage, because it's not the same for every roundabout, but you would be able to go through the circle. You don't have to change lanes in the circle, and you can reach your destination. Roundabouts are all over the place. They are not for Rhode Island, they are not for Middletown, they are not for East Providence. We have heard all that before. Well, the industry has installed roundabouts in places with a little bit of snow like Alaska, with a little bit of tourists like Colorado and Florida, with a lot of pedestrians. And in all these cases, the roundabouts have been successful. The same intersection that we were discussing before, the big circle that was converted into a smaller roundabout. Able, Colorado, a lot of tourists, people who go to this town and see roundabouts for the first time in their lives, and they're able to manage. You have one circle, you have another circle, you have medians in between, you have 2 lanes, and a right lane for whoever wants to go in this direction. Outside of an interstate, on a freeway, you have most likely WB 67 big trucks that deliver to the local stores. This is another intersection closer to home, National Hampshire Main Street at Daniel Webster Highway. The first time I drove to this intersection, probably 13 years ago, I was very confused, but I never got into an accident. I didn't know that this area was not supposed to be driven by my car, and I felt it. The next time I drove, I didn't have to go on top of that. But nevertheless, my car didn't get damaged, but it's uncomfortable enough that you're not supposed to be driving there. And it's designed in a way that any tractor trailer, any big bus, big truck can actually use it as an extra pavement, but it's not supposed to be driven by passenger vehicles. Worcester, Massachusetts, the Washington Square, the one I was describing before, they actually have these lights in the pavement that when someone pushes the button, they start flashing. I'm not sure how effective they are. Actually, talking to the traffic engineer for the district in Massachusetts, they say that pedestrians just walk by, they don't care about pushing the button, and they have not had many or any issues that I am aware of in terms of handling the amount of traffic or handling pedestrians. The train is in this part. There is also another train track up here, and on the other side of these of the train tracks, there is a signal very close by that is more utilized than what Ninth Street would be utilized normally. And as far as I am aware of, there are not really concerns about traffic backing out from the signal towards the roundabout, and they're creating a huge queue. And if you continue in this direction, you find the on-ramp to 290 that runs through the city of Worcester. So this is a roundabout in a very urban area with a lot of pedestrians who use the train, and with lots of different traffic modes of transportation. Roundabouts in Rhode Island, we already have 4 roundabouts in place. 2 of them are 1 lane, 2 of them are 2 lane. The first one that was installed in late 90s, Centerdale, not Providence, again, a project that was not driven by the Department of Transportation, something that the community wanted to see. And I'm not so sure how they convinced the department at the time to install something this weird, like experimental, but they went forward and then they installed it. Twin River Road, right outside of the government facility in Lincoln, we made the mistake as a department never to tell the public that there was going to be a roundabout, and oh boy, we heard about it. We were the worst people that you could even imagine in Lincoln. And at that time, dealing with the police department in Lincoln, during the implementation, people were very confused about how to ride it, and they were telling us this is going to be a nightmare. As soon as we leave, the police was telling us, as soon as we leave, there's going to be a head-on collision, and we're going to have to come back to pick up the bodies. Well, we actually asked them to leave, and guess what? People were driving much better, because they had no distraction with the lights on, they had no, all the cones and all the barrels were gone. So drivers were actually able to focus on all the elements of the road, pavement markings and signs, and are able to manage and handle that roundabout. And if you have curiosity about the kind of drivers that go to that facility, just go there at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday when you're supposed to be, or anybody should be working. And the kind of drivers that go into the area are very, very interesting. It's a very challenging crowd. Royal Mills in West Warwick is another single lane that was more driven by the department. Quonset Industrial Park in Kingston is another 2 lane, and we have a few more that are under design that are proposed. This slide is pretty old. As of now, we have at least another 12 that are under design that probably will hit the ground pretty soon. Centerdale, Good River, Royal Mills. And you can see this is the area I was telling you about. It's supposed to be used only by the trucks, not by passenger cars. This slide is, I actually downloaded this image was about a few months after the new roundabout was installed. Google was not catching up with us, and preparing for this presentation a couple of months ago, I found that they finally flew by and they obtained some images, so I can show you now what two-lane roundabout looks like. Unfortunately, the demand that we have here, we have the infrastructure, but we don't have the traffic yet. We expect that this roundabout will be heavily used. One of the questions that we heard, because this is not the first time we present the project, what's going to happen when we have an emergency vehicle and if I am in the circle, what should I do? Well, I think that we should do the same thing that we do in any other intersection, just move away from the intersection and let the roundabout clear. So the ambulance or the fire truck or the police car can actually go through the intersection. This tractor trailer was actually stopped there for 5 minutes. I'm not so sure what happened to him, a flat tire or something, or maybe just taking pictures, visiting tourists. I'm not exactly sure. But this guy was stopped there for 5 minutes. And despite the fact that he was blocking 1.5 lanes, traffic was able to move around. If we had a tractor trailer stop right now on West Main Road, I'll tell you, it's not going to take more than 1 minute until we start seeing backups all the way to the main. This is a project that we had in use a long time ago, and we were very hesitant as a department to install 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signals around Warwick, downtown, or Alpana. For whoever is familiar with this or is not familiar with this area, this is a one-way circulator. Nowadays, this is Route 1. If you're coming from Ponce area, from East Greenwich, you have to turn right, go around this area, and then you're able to catch back Route 1 going in this direction. If you're coming from Route 1, you have to go in this direction and back. This project actually proposed to make this section as a two-way, and we're going to install, as I was saying, 5 signals. It was going to be a fantastic business opportunity for whoever wants to sell sodas on a cold, on a very hot summer day, because you would have basically a parking lot in front of you, and everybody would be willing to have a cold soda. We actually asked our consultant at some point, probably 3 or 4 years ago, what if we actually look into roundabouts? What if we, instead of installing these signals that we know that from day one are going to fail because there is so much traffic that it's not going to be able to handle, even the signals are not going to be able to handle the amount of traffic we have of pedestrians. Why don't we look into roundabouts? So we look into roundabouts and we are moving forward with the installation of 1, 2, 3 multi-lane roundabouts, medians, and a couple of single-lane roundabouts in these two ends. Most of the traffic who is going from 95 who is further in this direction towards Oakland Beach on the eastern side of Warwick will have to drive to this corridor. We had a meeting in that time, a public meeting, and at that time, everybody was, no more circles. We already took them out. Why do you guys want to put them again? We presented the presentation, we explained what roundabouts can do for the people. And I can tell you, we did not convince 100% of the people. But whoever was totally against the roundabouts was at least willing to give them a chance. And at this point, and with support of the mayor of Warwick, we keep moving forward with the design of this 5 roundabout corridor. So whether we like it or not, at some point, whenever you go to Warwick, in probably 10 years, you will have to deal with roundabouts. So we either learn now, or we will learn sometime later, because roundabouts are going to happen in Rhode Island, no matter the funds. or no matter what every specific town would like to see there, because there are other towns in Rhode Island, there are municipalities in Rhode Island that are willing to install roundabouts in their roadways. Small blow-up of what we have, some more proposed roundabouts, and that's all I have in terms of roundabouts. If anybody has specific questions, we can actually show a few videos on operations of roundabouts, concerns that you may have, but as of now, I'll bring back Lambert to continue the presentation on the program.
Thank you, Francisco. As you can see, a lot of our presentation was to discuss the roundabouts and more from an education point of view, because again, it's our intention that we want to give the council and the public as much information on these so they can make a much more informed decision. So that's why we're discussing the benefits of the roundabouts and still not pushing any option. We just want people to know as much about this as possible. We understand that you can be a little skeptical. As Francisco mentioned, we were skeptical, we're the original skeptics, but I think we've come around to it. So if we didn't agree with roundabouts, we wouldn't be suggesting them as options. Up next is Bob Clinton from Manassas and Brussland. He's going to provide a lot of the engineering analysis, a lot of the numbers and the traffic, and also we'll show some simulations to show how everything is going to operate under either option. So if I can have Bob come up and he can give you a little presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Clinton. I'm with the firm Manassas and Brussland. We're a consulting firm to the Department of Transportation, and we're asked to perform a roundabout feasibility study and also analyze the existing traffic signals and proposed modified traffic signals. Okay, the roundabout feasibility study included conducting capacity analysis. That's basically determining if the roadway can handle the volumes that we're dealing with, both under the signalized concept and the roundabout concept. We developed conceptual plans, like Lambert explained earlier, and showed you a brief drawing of both of those. We compared the traditional signalized intersection with the proposed roundabout option. These are the two options that were shown earlier. The signalized concept, similar to today, there'll be two traffic signals. The major difference is the left turn lane, which doesn't exist today between the intersections. Whereas if a vehicle is waiting to take a left turn, it a lot of times today will block one of the through lanes, so you're down to one through lane at the intersection. The addition of a left turn lane will improve that situation. On the right is the roundabout concept. We did a capacity analysis of these. This first two columns is the overall delay and the level of service of the existing traffic signals out there. They operate at level at the Coddington Highway. During the morning and evening peak operates at level service D. About 40 seconds of delay, average delay. That's the average delay to every vehicle going through the intersection. The East Main Road intersection currently operates at level service C with average delays from 23 to 33 seconds per vehicle. As you can see, the signalized and the roundabout concept will improve the operation of the intersection. Will provide additional capacity. We end up with level of service C for the signalized option, level of service B with the exception of level of service A during the AM peak at Coddington Highway. The construction impacts and cost estimate. The costs of these are comparable. You have to keep in mind here the important things to point out. The signalized option has a much less right-of-way impact, 1,000 square feet of right-of-way versus 21,000. This is, this 21,000 also includes 6,000 square feet of the Navy Lodge property. It's important to note, too, that these two cost estimates don't include right-of-way impacts. Those are difficult to project, and those aren't included in here. So obviously the roundabout with a little bit more right-of-way, a lot more right-of-way impacts will increase the cost estimate of that. We then go through a safety benefit and a benefit to cost ratio. As Francisco discussed earlier, there are crash factors and improvement that the roundabout improvements will have. It will reduce the severity of accidents. It's been shown in other places where roundabouts have been implemented, and those crash factors factor into this the benefits of implementing the signalized and roundabout options. Adding the left turn lanes, for example, at the signalized intersection will also have some benefits too. So what we come up with is, at the bottom here, you'll see the signalized and roundabout options, the cost to benefit ratio, the benefit to cost ratio. Obviously, if your benefits exceed your costs, you're going to end up with a number greater than 1. Try to get, you always try to shoot for a benefit to cost ratio greater than 1. The roundabout option gives you that, whereas the signalized option, it's still an improvement, but not as big of an improvement. This is an important slide just to kind of compare other intersections that I think everybody's familiar with. The first one is the Newport Rotary. The volumes of traffic, a little over 2,000 vehicles per hour. The number of crashes, this is under existing conditions, 37 crashes. 95% of those being just property damage, only 5% being a result of injuries. Compared to the Pell Bridge off-ramp at Admiral Calvus, comparable volumes, you look here, you see 14% injury crashes. That's primarily due to all the conflict points that Francisco was talking about earlier. West Main Road, East Main Road, Covington, similar, around this 14% injuries. So even if you look at the total volumes too, even though the rotary isn't a roundabout, and roundabouts are typically even safer than rotaries, you have a total crash less than the existing two intersections. We have some simulation models that we put together. I think we're going to show those just after. Maybe I'll show you the clips from the videos just to show you what you're going to be looking at. This is, again, West Main Road, Coddington's here, East Main Road is here. This is a signalized option, this is the roundabout option. In both of our simulations, what we first look at is existing conditions. We try to calibrate that to accurately represent actual conditions on the roadway. Then we go and implement both of the two proposed alternatives. What we include in these future simulation models and our analysis is the 2030 volumes, the year 2030 traffic volumes. They include growth in the area, expected growth, and also the growth setting here that is under design and planning stages at this point. So we included all of that additional traffic that's going to be generated in the future, just to make sure that we don't put this either of these two improvements in and have them obsolete before we get it constructed. These are some snapshots from the video that you'll be seeing. This is the signalized option with modifications to these right turn movements. As you know from East Main, there's a channelized right turn movement, which people sometimes don't yield or stop at the end of that if traffic heading north on West Main. So this is going to bring them into the intersection and require those vehicles to stop. Again, heading northbound from West Main Road on the East Main Road. This is such a generous and large radius that people fly around this corner. There are geometric modifications proposed that will reduce this radius and slow the vehicles down from being more movements at such a rapid movement. This is kind of flipped around. Cottington comes in from the west side heading eastbound. This is the Cottington approach. What you'll see in the simulations is an aerial flyover of both of the study areas. This is Cottington, and this is West Main. Again, the same viewpoints. These are the two roundabouts, and this is Cottington with the roundabouts. If you see the lane configurations, the Cottington approach is a left turn lane, proposes a left turn lane, a left through, and a right turn bypass lane, which is like an exclusive right turn lane. So those people won't even be entering the roundabout. All the other approaches are two-lane approaches. Let's go through and show the simulation. We also keep in mind we didn't perform traffic counts of all the driveways along the corridor, but we did put in some volumes on each side street which correlate to the total volumes in the corridor. So it does represent that. And what you see happening today, a lot of people are often complaining about the signals, getting stopped at multiple signals as they progress down the corridor. It's difficult to, and the DOT's gone through several times out there trying to fine tune and get the platoons through as many signals as they can. But what happens is you have a lot of side friction. You have people coming in and out of driveways, people stopping in the left lane to take a left turn, which people have to swerve and go around. So that's a difficult thing for them to do. We're gonna just summarize the differences between the roundabouts, and then we're gonna switch computers real quick, and then we'll show you simulation. Yep. So let's go back here. Again, as Francisco was talking about, if you're coming down Cottington and the roundabout concept were to be implemented, and you wanted to take a left turn, today there's no left turn movement, so you can make a left turn from the roundabout in either of these two lanes, and this will direct you around and through the intersection. The signalized concept, we prepared the pros and cons of each of these two alternatives. Again, the DOT and we also agree that either of these two alternatives is going to be an improvement on what's there today. The pros for the signalized are that there's less right-of-way taking. The right-of-way takings are negligible compared to the operation of the businesses. There's less utility pole relocations. The cons, vehicle queues projected to extend beyond the turn days. Ideally, back in this drawing, we have a back-to-back left turn lane here. Ideally, we have a five-lane section in here with a left turn lane in Cottington filling up half of that area, and then left turn into Cottington filling up half the area, and the left turn onto East Main filling up half of that area. The projected queues are going to extend past those storage lanes and will occasionally block one of the through lanes. So ideally, it would be nice to have a 6-lane section here where you had the left turn lane that full length to accommodate those cars, and a left turn bay in the other direction. But, you know, to minimize our right-of-way constraints on this one and not impact businesses, that's the concept that was developed. Access management issues still exist. You still have the difficulty making left turns out of businesses. The higher overall vehicle delays, as shown in the capacity analysis. More turning lanes required. Like I said, the 6-lane section would absolutely be desirable if we had a blank slate and we had enough right-of-way in there. The safety benefit to cost ratio is less than 1. The roundabout concept, roundabouts generally eliminate most severe injuries, crashes, because you would end up with rear ends or side swipes rather than T-bones. This provides slower entrance speeds just because of the geometry. The queues are not projected to extend to the adjacent intersections. Creates good access management. You're required to take right turns out of the driveways. Creates lower overall vehicle delays, as shown in the capacity analysis. Less additional turning lanes. Reduces pollution from idling vehicles at traffic signals. The safety benefit to cost ratio is greater than 1. The cons, right-of-way, yes. More right-of-way, as shown in that one graphic. The right-of-way taking its impact on business. Actually, it's not occupied right now. One of them on the southwest corner of Cottington. More utility poles are impacted. It's a complex construction staging. However, you know, traffic will be accommodated at other times through the intersection. And one thing I think like mentioned, the DOT has done a lot better job these days of doing nighttime construction, working with business owners to keep those businesses open. If you travel the roadways at night, you'll see that the DOT has implemented a lot of nighttime construction operations. The longer delays in starting because, like Laundry mentioned, the signalized option is at 75%, the roundabout option is at 10% design. So with that, we can't show the we're going to swap the computers out, but then I think we're going to maybe discuss some of the common questions. We did get a list of some questions, and we, as Laundry said, we went through several of these presentations, and we received emails, the DOTs received emails on some of the concerns. We'd like to touch on a couple of those before we get to the public comments, because I think some of these are going to, we saw repetitive comments in our emails, and we thought it'd be good to address those up front.
Thank you. Like you said, he's going to hook up the computer, and I think we can. It's kind of important that you see the simulations, and that's part of the analysis, and it's something that visually helps you understand some of these things. But we can perhaps discuss some of the questions that came up. Again, with respect to the funding, they pretty much are a wash when you exclude some of the utility costs and the property acquisition costs. The property acquisition costs, those are somewhat difficult to estimate at this point, but it will cost more, obviously, the roundabout option versus the signalized option. We do recognize that, but again, it's just to give everybody the proper information. How the work is going to be done, it's kind of a general question under either option. This is something that obviously is very concerning to a lot of the businesses, particularly in the economy that we're in. And years ago, we did most all of our work during the daytime. In fact, we've done a lot of work on Aquidneck Island in the past several years, past maybe 10 years. And what was decided that we would just kind of phase it out so we wouldn't just gridlock the entire island at one time. That's why we did, the East Main Road, Valley Road, we did other sections of West Main Road. We kind of jumped around because we didn't want to do it all at once, which kind of postponed the ultimate improvements. And here we are talking about one of the latter jobs. But back then when we did those other projects, those were pretty much daytime jobs. We didn't really do much of that at nighttime. I think last year we did some repaving on West Main Road. I believe that was done, might have been done at nighttime. But we're a little bit more comfortable with doing a lot of our work at nighttime. And I think that really helps out the businesses because many of them may be closed. And we're also building the projects under less traffic volume. Aside from being good for you folks and not having to sit in it, it's good for us because in many cases we can take more space to build a project and give ourselves a little bit more opportunity to get in there with the equipment and work it with a little freer versus being constrained. So that'll help make things go a lot quicker. But at the end of the evening, when we do open it up to rush hour, again, you will still experience recently constructed work. So there will be some inconvenience, regardless of whatever we build. It's our intention to just try to minimize that inconvenience as much as possible. Another question that came up was, when will either option start and how long will it take? We feel that the signalized concept, if we were to go forward with that, as we are at 75%, we could probably finish that work and have that out to construction sometime in the middle of next year. We do have some land acquisition we have to do. We have to finish the plans. We have to obtain our environmental permits. We have to work out a lot of details. A lot of those details being, sequencing of the construction. So we're looking at sometime next year where we would, mid-next year, where we would actually start that work. It's probably about a season and a half, one construction season and a half to actually do that work. The roundabout option, because if we were to go with the roundabout option, we would have to start the design, would be a lot farther back, so we'll probably be looking at about 2 years from when we start. So construction would probably start in sometime 2013. And again, that would probably be about a season and a half, depending on when we start the work. If you got a good jump on it, you can do some of the season, or you can start very early. So either way, it's about a season and a half, plus or minus. Those things we do need to determine once we get more details. And one could start next year, or perhaps in a year and a half from now. Peter, is that all set? All right, well, I'll stop talking, stop delaying, and I'll just let you go to the simulation.
Okay, this first video. Oh yeah, lights. Like I said, the first thing we do is try and model existing conditions. So we have a base model to work with. And you're looking at here, West Main Road again, East Main Road, Coddington's over here. This is the existing signal operation. And you see a vehicle stopping to take a left turn, blocking the through lane. Backups on Coddington. That's it.
Is this current traffic flow or future?
This is the existing traffic volumes. This is the peak, not the peak, but it's during the summer season.
What time of day?
The PM peak, 4 to 6 time period. We expanded our study area to go north on West Main. We're next going to show the signalized option. It's going to go through the same flyover. Again, this includes the growth center, includes the left turn lanes. This is 2030 volumes. Again, summer, evening, peak. See the left turn storage lane just barely accommodated in that spot. This option would include all new signal equipment at both locations. One of the other comments we got quite often from the businesses along here, the existing signals create gaps in the traffic which allow people to make left turns out of these driveways. What will happen with that in the future? The traffic signals to the north will still remain, so you're going to get some gaps from those. The roundabout will disperse the gaps and make them less, it'll be a more random arrival rate from the south. You're not going to get those consistent gaps from the signal. Again, in the peak summer months, it's difficult to make a left turn in and out of here today. So imagine 2030, it's going to be more difficult to make left turns in and out of these driveways with the increased volumes.
At peak season, the traffic to Valley Road backs all the way up to the first intersection. It's not that light. There's
Right.
definitely more cars in there.
Again, a lot of the congestion is caused by the side friction, which, you know, the model can only do so much to represent that side restrictions that you get side friction from the driveways.
And what time did you say this was?
This is the evening peak, the 4 to 6 p.m. period.
Because that's the time that base and move is usually letting out, and sometimes the traffic
traffic counts, we have traffic volumes for these time periods. And then, again, we added in growth for the future growth in the area as well as the growth center. These the left turn storage lanes do have an improvement on the operation of these two signals, because they allow 2 through lanes of traffic to be processed within the signal. This is the roundabout option.
I think that what we're seeing is that it's not that we're adding the numbers, but it's not accurate to our traffic in our area.
And this shows that in this left lane, this is the left turn through lane, and this is a through right turn lane.
You show where the pedestrians are crossing.
Yeah, these crossings, they cross in advance of the intersection. There is a, again, you look at one direction and you cross, and then you have a refuge area in the middle, and then you cross the other direction.
Kind of watch the figures and watch the street.
The speeds of these vehicles are at 25 miles per hour, because you can't physically drive through this thing any greater than that. These geometric, the radii of these curves.
What about the fire and walk traffic stops?
You know what I'd like to do is, I have a microphone that I can pass around. One of the things that we're doing is taping this for people at you at home, so I guess it's we can turn this conversation off.
Yeah, I guess maybe what we can do now is open it up to conversation, maybe turn the simulation off and turn up the lights. And I guess, is it easier to have people come up, or is it easier to run around the light?
Well, I'm gonna list the start with, and who's got the microphone now? Sean? Okay. Let's start with the Mellows. Bob Mello.
My name is Bob Mello.